Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Salim. I have to say that remembering to turn on record is becoming one of my worst bad habits because I keep forgetting. I'm not seeming to learn that at all. So thank you. And we'll continue to acknowledge you for anyone who's like you, Salim, who tells me. So just getting back to what we were just saying, that there's a fair amount of stress. People are feeling, you know, that they're behind, and it's very hard to catch up. And the pressure of that just gnaws at you. And I think there's, you know, it's also, we're just in the doldrums of the semester. You know, it's far enough away from Thanksgiving. You probably may not even be traveling or doing anything for Thanksgiving. The end of the semester looks very far ahead, although it's actually, we're about halfway through. But it's a lot. And, you know, the weather is, depending on where you are, it's very hot, so it's hard to sleep. And also tempting to be outside when you have almost work to do. So I get it. And I just want to say it's really understandable, especially now, to you know, to give yourself a break. Okay. And also I encourage you to talk about this with your own classes if you're teaching. Talk about it with other students. Everybody's feeling kind of the same way. And the faculty have been talking about this too, that we want to find ways to take the pressure off and reduce it for you. So just know that we're going to be trying to give you slack wherever possible. We are being pretty understanding with things like things running late, etc. But I want to give you the encouragement that you'll get through this. It's going to make you stronger. And if you really are feeling behind, I would just say, just buckle down and say, I'm going to catch up on these courses, and just give yourself that real push, and then really try and stay on top of it. I would try and set a goal to watch each lecture within 24 hours of the lecture being presented. And the reason I say that is, and then you can still adjust the time to what's best for you. And I appreciate actually everyone here who's actually here in real time. But that way you don't get behind, and it won't start catching up with you. Okay. And so try to stick with that so you don't get stuck, certainly at the end of the semester. And we're going to try and also give really reduced assignments around the week of Thanksgiving, whether or not you're traveling, but that's a time also that we'll be able to catch up. So I don't know what else to say. I wish I had a better way of engaging you. If we were all actually in a classroom, I'd bring pizza at this point in the semester and give you a treat or something. But yeah, we just have to get through it. Okay. So also I encourage you, give your students some slack too. They're going to need it. You know, we'll all make it. Okay, so let's go back to the topic at the syllabus here for this week. And we're in the 8th week. And the topic is about assessment, grading, and creating exams. So you had a homework last week, and I want to do a breakout to discuss that in pairs. But before we do that, I want to talk about the final essay of this class. So this is the assignment for this class, which will be that we ask you to do a final essay that's on a topic related to the class, any topic that you want, but and it's relatively short, 4 pages, double spaced. So and the other criterion, it should have 11, I don't know why I got 11, but 10 or so references. So then they can be web pages, but I want you to not just, you know, sort of free associate, but actually do some research and reference those sources, and then talk about a topic. And I'm really open. If it's related to teaching, I'm probably going to be fine with it. If it's related to something we're talking in this class going further, that's even better. But it should be, I want it to be kind of fun, an opportunity for you to explore something a little bit deeper. And it's not going to be onerous. I really think it's something that I think you could do in about 3 hours or so, 3 or 4 hours. And so, you know, don't spend a huge amount of time polishing and crafting this. It's not you know, I'm not looking for the best piece of writing ever. I want you to just show me that you've dug into something that you're interested in. And so the idea, so I'll just give you the rubric first, and then the assignment for this week is going to be to choose a topic, because I want you to get that going. And then the homework is choose the topic, the title, and a quick summary of why you're interested in that topic, and then just submit that, because I want to look at those just to make sure that they're reasonable, and also to get you thinking about it with plenty of time ahead. You can just you don't have to finish it by any means, but just it's in the back of your mind. Here's something keep an eye out for. And again, I want you to pick something you're excited about. So the rubric for that assignment is going to be, it's about 20% is its relevance to the class, 30% is the novelty of the ideas and insights. So, what that means, I don't want you to just sort of turn the crank and spit back something that's fairly obvious, but I want you to really think about something that's hopefully a novel insight into the topic. And then 30% is the clarity of writing and the arguments and evidence. And then 20% is the sources, that you found some relevant and timely references. So again, it's if you could make a case that, oh, I'm taking something that's very classical, there's nothing timely written on it. Maybe I would believe you, but we'd have to really make a case for that. But generally, what I'm interested in is things where you talk about something that's timely. So for example, anything to do with COVID-19, teaching under COVID-19, trying to, any aspect of our class related to how that's been transformed would be very welcome. All right, so let's just open up any questions, any thoughts about that, any things that come to mind that you'd be interested in writing about. And again, I have no problem if two people write on the same topic. That's okay. I prefer you not to collaborate, but if you do, that's even okay. As long as you have some pretty clearly defined differences in the essay that you submit. So any ideas? Anybody want to share anything that they would think about topic-wise?
What about like examinations in general?
Oh yeah.
Like need for and use? Yeah,
absolutely. And in fact, that's our topic today. So great. You're right on time there, Preston. Yeah, so absolutely. We can do you could do a study of a little more in depth about what works, what doesn't in exams, or very top, and we will get to this today, is how do we do exams when we're remote, which is a huge quandary right now. So that, and I think there's a lot of articles and things about that, so it would be very interesting to review that. Good. Okay, anyone else?
Kind of pertaining to exams, I was thinking of doing research into the pros and cons of grading on a curve versus not grading on a curve. It's something that one of my professors brought up in one of my classes, and it really got me thinking.
Great. Okay, perfect. Great topic. And again, there's been a lot written on that. I'd be really interested to see. And also, again, you might inflect that by how is that affected by the current situation. Good. All right. Thanks, Sasha. Who else is there a topic you're interested in?
I don't know. I think I'm sort of thinking between like the upsides of remote learning, just to kind of take an optimistic view. So maybe something like emphasizing how, teaching software, teaching code, or something like that under COVID, or analytics or something like that. But another topic I'm sort of that I've been considering is just like research under COVID-19 and how research was affected, or teaching research or advising students, or just how thinking about the challenges there.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that could work. I would be pretty open to that. I think the key would be how how that could be enhanced. Let's say if we were doing a research seminar, teaching a research seminar, and how that could be done remotely. That would be very appropriate. Good. I see Claire wrote down about flipped classrooms. That's definitely very relevant. That's a big trend right now, and it'd be very good to go a little deeper into that. Good. Anyone else? All right, if you're still thinking about it, it's fine. One of the things I do, that's the whole point of this assignment, is just to get you to look over the syllabus, pick something that looks good, or something outside the syllabus that you want to pursue, and then just turn that in this next week. So then we'll have I'll be able to give you feedback if it's really diverging. I'll talk with you. Otherwise, you can assume if you don't hear from me that it's good to go. All right. Okay. So I just want to give you a heads up on that, and then let's talk a little bit about. We have this chapter on homework and grading. I'm going to get to that after. I think I'm going to give you the breakout though right now to talk about the homework. And so let me do what I did last week. I'm going to try 15 minutes for this one. And what I want you to do again is the homework assignment was to create a 5-question homework for a course. If you're teaching a course, then please, you were hopefully going to use that one. If you're not, you would use another one. And I just want you to talk about it. So leave enough time, or just budget your time so that both of you get a chance. But talk about what your problems were, why you chose them, and just some general thoughts on this. Then switch, and so the other person does the same perspective. Maybe why it was hard to do that, what was the process for doing it, and then we'll come back and talk about it, okay? So we have 26 here, so I'm gonna create 13 rooms, and as usual, when, if you get in a room and you're alone, or there's a, some problem, just hang tight and I'll try to swap you into another room. If you come back into the main room, I have to move you manually, and also keep an eye on your screen, because when I move you to another room, you have to acknowledge and to make it work. Okay. All right. Let's see how this works. I'm going to create a couple extra breakout rooms so I have them. All right, everybody. I'll see you in 15 minutes. 5. All right.
Hi, can you hear me? I think you're muted, Karen.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Hey, Robin.
Yeah, I was just in a breakout room with Michael, but I don't know if my internet was screwing up or something. I couldn't hear him, and I wasn't sure if it was me or him.
Oh, okay. Let's see. But you're working now, or just?
I mean, I can hear you, and presumably you can hear me. So it
Yeah,
looks
I can
like
hear you
Michael also
fine.
came back into the
Okay, Michael's
the
back
main
here.
room.
All right, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put you two into room 13. Let's try that and see if that works. Michael, can you hear me all right? Michael? I can't hear him. Wait, before I do that, let me check. Michael, you seem to be muted or something. I don't know what's going on. Michael, there seems to be a problem with your system. Maybe log out and log back in. I'm going to have Mackenzie and Robin, and I'm going to move you guys up to room 13, okay? All right, you have to just accept it to make it work. Okay. Michael, I'm here with you, but I don't hear you. Something is wrong. Michael.
Hey, I think as soon as I joined the breakout room, something went weird with my Zoom. So I'm on my phone now.
Okay, yeah, because I have you in 3 different places. You're in.
Yeah, I
breakout
don't know
room.
what, I don't know what's going on with my computer. It's something's going on, but I'm on this one right now.
Okay, I'm just going to remove you from this, just so I don't get confused with the 2 versions.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was in with Rob and Peter when it quit working.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to move you back in with Robin and Mackenzie, but just trying to remember where you are though, because they all say Michael Kelly, and this one won't let me remove you. It's really weird. It's really frozen and it's not responding but the problem is I have you. Can you change your name on the one that you're using right now, just so I have?
Yeah. How do you do that? I've actually never done it.
If you click on the 3 dots on your name, maybe you can't do that on the phone.
Okay.
Okay.
How about my other ones should have, they should be gone now. I exited out.
No, it's still here for me. It's really weird.
Wow,
And
that's weird.
it won't let me remove it, and it's showing up. I actually have 3 of you in the breakout room assignment, so I don't know where you are. It's really interesting. Okay. Well, let's just hang out.
I found the rename, just so you know. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Michael Kelly 2. Michael Kelly 2.
Yay. All right, wait. Now that's where you are. Okay, I'm going to put you in with Robin and Mackenzie then. Let me do that.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Hi, Julie.
Hey,
Julie,
sorry. Just
no
running late
problem.
today.
No problem. I'm going to put you in a breakout room with let's see, who's Claire and Zinab. Okay, breakout room
Okay.
5. All right. Bluma. Hey, Vishal, Ming.
Hi.
Okay, no problem. You guys came in a little late, but what we did was they went out. Everybody went out to talk about their homework.
Yeah, we actually did talk about it. We just we
Are
thought
you
we
coming
were
back
at
from the
the
breakout?
time. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Good. It will bring everybody. Should it bring everybody back? Close now. Okay, good. Good. All right. So everybody will be joining us back, and let's talk for a few minutes about those 5 homework problems. That's my dog. All right. So who would like to share something that that they learned or an insight from that exercise or what you discussed with your in your breakout room just now? Was it really easy to make these homework problems? Anyone? Was it really hard? Anybody want to share what they did? How about someone who hasn't ever done that before? In other words, you never made a homework problem before. It was a first time experience. Who could share with us that experience of creating a homework, an assignment that you've never done before? Is everybody old experts on this or what?
I guess I can share mine.
Okay, Vishal, yeah.
I guess can I share my screen? I can just show you the questions I had.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I've never done this before, but I was kind of looking at what's a kind of more holistic way to approach homework problems, because in my experience with my class I'm GSIing right now, which is the properties of materials class, a lot of people, a lot of the students complain to me, and I'm not grading, but they complain to me that a lot of the homework assignments, you'd lose a lot of points for making a silly mistake early, and then you wouldn't be able to kind of answer the subsequent questions based on that. So I kind of, in my undergrad, there was a kind of interesting concept of like a long answer physics question, which is kind of meant to be structured as an essay, but you could kind of, it would have technical aspects to it as well. So I thought that might be an interesting way to evaluate people. So kind of,
can you make these a little bigger, Vishal? Can you make these a little bigger? Like
yeah. Let me zoom in.
Yeah. Ah, good, great.
So I kind of each of these questions is worth 15 marks, and there five marks for demonstrating technical knowledge, 5 marks for applying it, and then 5 marks for organizing it in an interesting or in a clear way. And so all of these kind of require you to have some technical knowledge, but then also apply it to something a bit more general. So like Bragg's law is kind of how diffraction works in materials. And the idea is that you have to be able to derive it, but also kind of discuss why it's significant in material science in general. And you can go in different directions. It doesn't have to be kind of, there's no set mark scheme, but as long as you're kind of making a convincing case of why it's important. For example, explaining a relationship between a metal's microstructure and its properties, you need to know what defects there are in a microstructure, but then you can extend that in a lot of different ways. My favorite question that I came up with was this last one, which is you need to replace the currency of a small country somewhere, and you need to find a material that's kind of different. And so you need to kind of bring in your technical knowledge, but apply it in a more general way. And there's a lot of flexibility with how you approach the problem. And so the mark scheme is kind of, you need to demonstrate your technical knowledge, and synthesize or bring up more technical knowledge if you can. And then you have to be able to apply it and link different areas of knowledge together. And then you have to kind of write it in a clear way. So yeah.
Great. Okay. Very nice, very nice. Okay, so actually leave it up for one more second, Vishal, if you don't mind. I think it's very good. I like that you didn't just say get a problem with Bragg's law, right? You could just give them some values and say find the find the frequency or whatever it is, right? So you want them to derive it and then discuss its significance.
Yeah, I feel like exams are kind of more the place where you can test if people are actually able to kind of do problems with it. But I feel like homework assignments are really about getting the conceptual knowledge. So
Good. Okay. So I like this. I also think it's very detailed in that you gave them all the the values, so quantified how much you're giving credit to each one, and then you went into a lot of detail in your rubric, right? And it's actually quite extremely detailed rubric there. And so let's talk about it for a second. I think one thing, and I love question 5. I think you really those are really fun, right? That's something everybody can relate to, and it makes it into something that you can visualize, you can go with, right? And I think that actually those kind of things you can imagine even for the other, like Snell's law, right? You can imagine a scenario where you're trying to, I'm a little rusty on my Snell's law, but you're trying to break into break out of you were locked in some vault or something. You had to figure out this frequency to get out, right? All these everybody loves these escape games, and escape from. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Where you go to this place and you have to escape from a cell, and they have all these puzzles for you to solve. So you can imagine that you sort of use that in your homework because it's kind of fun. Everybody likes the sort of pressure of how do you escape. So that could be interesting for all the problems. I like this idea. You visualize, put yourself in a different situation. Now, one thing I'll just give you a little bit of feedback in the sense that I think one thing is they're all the same, right? And one thing you might want to think about is just the amount of marks or percentage. And so you might want to think about varying them because some of them seem a little harder than others, right? So think about that. And then I would also do it in percentages because it's hard with the 15 adds up to 75. I have to do a little bit of math in my head to figure out, right, what that's 15 over 75, right? That I think that it's really 20% out of 100, right? So you might just list that because that's easier, especially under an exam. I always list the score of each point because for a couple of reasons. One is I want to show them that some problems are harder, that I'm giving them more credit for harder problems, and also let them budget their time so that they don't spend all their time on a problem that's not going to get that much weight. So that's very helpful that you did that. I like that you're thinking outside the box though. It's just across the board. And by the way, this is very relevant to what we're trying to do today with distance education, because the typical questions of just solve the problem and give the answer, which is some number, that is very tempting for people to cheat on, right? This is not. You can't copy your friend's answer here, right? If you do that, you're gonna get caught, right? And so you could look at your friend's answers, but then you still gotta have to work at coming up with your own. And in some way, it's actually interesting because it makes it harder. If you cheat, in other words, you look at somebody else's answer, what have you done? You've actually made your life harder. Why? Because you've just figured out, they've just given you a bunch of things. And now you have to think of something different than what they did, okay? So you've just actually, reduced your field of answers by cheating. So you've hurt yourself. So that's kind of interesting side effect. So I really like this. And I think this is actually the trend that we're gonna have to do at least, for the foreseeable future with COVID-19, but also it's just even true for in general, just getting to think about exams and problems, homeworks and exams, get you to think more conceptually, as you said. So great, thank you for sharing that. Any other comments on that or those kind of questions? Did anyone else strive to do that? Be a little creative.
I can share a few comments. I thought, it's super cool homework. I feel like, if I saw this homework, it would be a class that I would want to take. One thing I wanted to sort of maybe, it seems like it's a properties of materials homework. So, but one thing that I noticed is that it's, a very general questions that are sort of like, there's not necessarily a theme that carries across. So it might like it goes from, Bragg's law to mechanical well, they are all related, right? But I would be curious to think about how you would teach like a lecture or a series of lectures and cover all of this material. That might be challenging. But also, I also really wanted to just, double emphasize, how cool, the last problem is, because, you sort of give a different flavor to, how material science can be used in some like imaginary kind of situation. And I think that makes students very curious in general and gets them excited about the course material in general. Yep. So great job.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's interesting because, there you did something that's almost timeless, right? About going to a deserted island, which I think is really interesting, but not deserted, but, a remote island. But you could also take it even a step further where you tie it to something that's going on in even, current events would be really interesting, right? You might say that, certain trace elements of this material were found at the White House briefing room, right? And, that you have to perform some kind of analysis to figure out, actually there was something, right? Where some trace element was found on one of President Trump's his letters or something, right? You could talk about the analysis of how that material was detected. Again, because it's just really fun when you say this was in the news, last week, and now, you're applying it. Because it's true. You also, by the way, after you're teaching a class, you have a pretty good idea about where it can be applied, but the students don't. So the more you can tie that in, they love that. Love to know where it can be applied. Super fun. And they can talk about it. The other thing I really like is to find something how you can get something where it'll come up at dinner with their friends. And they could say, I've learned this, and they start talking about it. And if you can do that, they're gonna be very jazzed up about their class. They've learning something they can share with their friends, with their parents. And then they're going to be more engaged. They're going to like really absorb that like sponges. Okay, great. Other thoughts and suggestions? I mean, again, something like just making up a homework, which seems like a chore and just like, oh, I got to do this, but turn it into something interesting. So other examples of the homework problems you might have had that are interesting?
I have another comment about the homework that we just looked at. Was that Vishal's?
Yeah.
So I really liked that approach to the problems where you're like exploring it conceptually and in depth. But one comment I might have is that if this is the entire homework for the week, that can be really opaque and hard to approach if you are not already familiar with the material. Because I know this is kind of bridging the gap between like intuitive learners and sensing learners maybe that we talked about earlier in this class. So let's say you go to lecture and they talk about the concepts and things and you're like nodding along and you really get it. That's oftentimes me, but then I go to the problem set and it's like a very much an application problem and I'm like, I have no idea how to do this. I didn't actually understand the material in the lecture. So I think having like maybe a split between these kinds of problems, these kinds of derivation problems and like application problems can be useful. Or even like if you wanted to keep the derivation part, maybe making like a more credit, more point, like multi-part problem that has derive it and then apply it. Just like a thought.
Good, thank you, Robin. Actually, that's really nice because I think what you're getting at is, it's a very good point. I appreciate that. What you're saying is thinking about these different learning styles. Maybe there should be one of a different style in there, one or two, that lets them actually do the traditional thing of actually solving a problem, actually putting it to use. You have derives Bragg's law, but you might want to give one where you actually give the numbers and you say solve. So I think that actually is a good point, thinking about the range of different abilities that you want to get. I'm feeling a little guilty about that on one homework I just gave. It was all the same kind of problems, and now I'm cringing a little bit. But yeah, so that's good. Variety, okay, that's great. And then also easiness to hard. Another good point, which is again why I sort of encourage you to put like some that might be 10% early on. That's sort of easy just to get you going. Because one thing a lot of times, especially on exams, is if you hit everybody with a super hard problem first thing, you really are going to give everybody a stress level. Their cortisol levels are going to go up. Everything's going to be, because now you've just sort of stumped them on the first question. Don't do that. I always give a very easy low ball question on the first, to get them warmed up, you know, and they feel really good. They got that, oh yeah, this now I'm going, right? And then you've given them a benefit. So a homework can do that too. Okay.
One thing I wanted to ask on that point is, you know, when I was distributing points on the homework that I was writing, you know, I was always a fan of homeworks where easy problems and hard problems are sort of weighted almost similarly and not that big of a difference, where the hard, like that, if you get the easy problem done, you'd still get a good amount of points, and attempting the hard problem would give you most of the points. And so you're discouraged to like attempt all problems. But I don't know what your thoughts are, if like easy problems should get less of a grade than a hard problem getting more points. That's a balance that, you know, I've, you know, had, you know, like was kind of thinking about when I was distributing points, and I ended up going with just giving all the problems equal weight.
Yeah, that is a good argument that could be made there. I was thinking more along on for exams, when you're giving some easier, shorter problem that you want to give that different weights. Good. Okay. So let's get to one more person.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can I also chime in real quick? So I think, like, to Salim's point, I don't, like, we're sort of throwing these terms like easy and hard around like they mean nothing. And I think like something that is easy for someone is not going to be easy for somebody else. So I kind of do sort of like the idea of, at least in homework, that they weigh the same. I think on exams, like, that makes sense. Like, there are going to be technically harder problems, and maybe that comes later versus like conceptual. But sometimes for a lot of people, like for me, I'm much more conceptual versus like hardcore, like plug and chug. Whereas I think, like, I have friends that can't do the conceptual, but often the problems that are the plug and chug are worth a lot more than the conceptual. But then it's like, if you can plug in numbers, but you don't understand the concepts, and are you really learning anything? So I think it's like an interesting, I don't know, it just like got brought up, and I think it's an interesting idea to think about, because like what we define as easy and hard isn't the same, and like what we actually want our students to learn isn't necessarily what they're learning.
Great point. And in fact, thanks for bringing that up, Clara, because that's true. When I was using that term kind of loosely, and you're absolutely right. One of the things we really want to be sensitive to is the variations in learning styles, in strengths and weaknesses among the students. So we should be really on guard to that. So when we think it's easy, that again is very much biased toward our own perspective. And so it may very well be just the opposite for the students, right? As you're saying, Clara, right? So the conceptual might be easy, and and procedural might be hard. So that's a great point. And so it means, I think it's going again toward the idea of, let's try to have diversity in the types of questions, try to have a range of, and I guess better way to say it is sort of, if I were asking 2 application questions, I would give one that was easier in the sense that it's a little more straightforward, that it's pretty straightforward to see what to do, and then give them one that makes them have to think a little harder to sort of reapply something. And the same for exams. That's what I meant by easy, but you're right, those terms are loaded. And so I want to be, we should be respectful of that. I think that, you know, I tend to think of it as ramping up, let's say within a sub area. I'll ask 5 questions, and I want to give a sort of something just to get them comfortable, that I know that they can pretty much do in their sleep. You know, it's pretty similar to things they've seen, almost exactly the same as something they've seen, so they can just write it down and they feel good. But you're right, that may not be easy for someone else. The other thing is just in terms of thinking about time, because this is something we are going to talk about, time management in general, but time management on exams is particularly complicated. And you know, we always put time limits on things. There's a lot of, and this is what I want to talk about next, is how you can think about that. I just think that the more you do to prepare students, to give them understand, you know, the time, and so they can budget their time during the exam, and they don't get stressed. Because I tell you, I always give, you know, I give updates about how much time you have left, and then invariably when I say there's 2 minutes left, there's a huge panic. You know, I can feel it in the room, and I hate that. I always try and say, don't wait till the last minute. Make sure So usually at about halfway through, I say, at this point, you should have read through all the problems, should have looked at them all, and just budget your time. So I help them, you know, try to balance their time. Because it's very easy, by the way, it's human nature. You get caught up in one thing, you're really trying to solve it, and you just want to get it. And a lot of students are like this. They really get locked in on that thing, and they forget. They lose track of time. It's human nature. And you have to find a way to help them not get stuck there. Okay. So let's hear from someone. Well, let's go on to grading. Actually, before we do that, we didn't get a chance to talk about Rob Reich and that wonderful lecture he gave. And I wanted to say a mention on that because for those who watched it, I mean, he's such a great speaker. And you know, the point he makes about just, you know, conveying knowledge, you know, the economic model, that you're just like there to do a transaction. You're going to give them knowledge and they're going to absorb it. And that's one way to think about teaching. But the other, as he said, is sort of, it's like you're advancing a social contract, and you're there, very importantly, he says, to learn together. And I really like this. He talks about, you know, that it's a collaborative process. And does anybody remember the term he uses to talk about that, like a classroom or class?
I'm guessing you're gonna come tell us soon.
If no one comes up with it, I will have to. All right, he says a learning community. And it's a really nice insight. And what he's saying is, look, it's not just like you're here to, you know, command this class and everybody's there to listen. It's a community. We're all in this together. And his point is, if you create that kind of environment, then you're teaching all kinds of secondary things too. It's about, you know, listening. How do we listen to each other? How do we participate, right? And, you know, there's about, I would say, and this class is very typical, you know, there's 30 people here, but usually there's 10 who are most active. And, I don't, you know, it's totally understandable, but think about this as like, how can we all help each other and work together? And I think the breakout rooms is one way to do that, because it pushes you to really connect with one other person and sort of start learning with them, which I really like. And I think you guys do too. But it's also that, you know, let's figure things out. Let's teach each other. And I think this class is actually moving in that direction. At least I like to think that. I find it's very free form, and we're kind of going in directions that I don't always plan. So I enjoy that. And I think if you guys think about that in your own sessions or sections when you're teaching, it can be really productive. So, and he talks about this as, you know, as a politician, he's saying that this is actually what we need for society, is we need people to learn, we need our students to learn how to work together, to deliberate, to educate each other. And so you're actually doing something that's very, very powerful on a meta level, teaching them, you know, essentially how to learn together in these learning communities. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it, I still encourage you to go do it. It's really, and he's funny, and he's got great stories about actually being at Berkeley. So, okay. Any other quick comments on the Rob Reich assignment before we move on?
I had a comment that was kind of funny, but also kind of, you know, I really like the guy. I really like the content of the talk. I really like the delivery. But something that was, you know, that just kind of made me stand there awkwardly and think a lot was when he brought up the example about, it still stuck with me until now. I watched it like 2 weeks ago, like right after class, as soon as he mentioned it. And he you know, he brought up an example about, you know, where there's like he kind of made some learning stereotypes that, you know, could be perceived as offensive. I'm not sure. I don't really want to make any kind of judgments there, but he says something like, you know, agents, you know, you can see in like agent student populations that if you know, call the student out, they're more likely to participate, something like that. And I just thought it was really weird to bring it up like that. I thought it was kind of insensitive.
Okay, good. I'm
But
glad you brought that up. No, I think that's a great point. I think this is actually also something we're going to get to in talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's a great point. I think you're right. I mean, one of the things is that there's been a lot of, I think, increase in awareness about these issues and sensitivity. And so I think it's actually, there's been a lot of improvement. But you're absolutely right that I don't think he would say that today.
yeah, I mean, I feel like it could have been said that like a certain student population was shown to, you know, you don't necessarily need to make that, and making a generalization like that sometimes it doesn't really make sense, you know. Like there are so many different types of students within one ethnicity that, like, I don't know, maybe back then it could have been kind of socially acceptable to say something like that, but I don't know about, yeah, like I think, yeah.
You know, actually, I think your point is that I think if you went back and watched almost any lecture from 10 or 20 years ago, we'd probably be pretty alarmed at the kind of things that were going on, that people were saying, you know? And you're, so I really appreciate you brought that up. And that is going to be a perfect segue into the topic. And I wanted to tell you all, I have really found some very interesting reading for that session. And it's an essay about white fragility. Do you guys know that term, white fragility? Okay, some of you have. So it's very interesting. And so I found the original essay, which was in a sociology journal. And so it's relatively short. It's just like 8 pages or so. That brings up, it was the first to bring it up, which the author later turned into a book that's been very popular during this period. But then I also want you to read a pushback on that concept that is that's in the Atlantic. And I think it's really interesting. That was written this summer to push back on the white fragility essay. Let's see, where is this? It's on, this is going to come up. Where is it? Oh, diversity, equity, and inclusion in week 10. There it is. Okay, yeah, and it's in homework 9. So there's a white fragility article, then the critique, and I really want to have us have a really to really talk about this, because I think it's very interesting. The white fragility brings up a lot of interesting and I would say counterintuitive points. But then the critique of it also really just gets it even deeper and very rich. So I think you guys will really enjoy that, and we'll have a lot to say on it. Okay, so that's just a little, stay tuned, that's coming soon.
I do just want to add one last thing. I don't necessarily think that, you know, the speaker himself is racist or meant anything racist by saying that, because he also talks a lot about like learning and hearing different perspectives, and he talks about, you know, all of the values. I think it was just the phrasing of the example, or maybe the way that study was designed, or something like that.
Right, but Salim, you actually just hit the key word, is saying he didn't mean to be racist. That's actually exactly the root of what the white fragility is all about. So you're gonna really, I think it'll be very interesting for all of us to have this discussion. So thank you for bringing it up. Perfect segue. All right, so right now I want to move on to the grading of, and by this I mean exams and grading. And again, I'm hoping we could finish in about 20 minutes, so we won't keep you too much longer, but I want to talk about this chapter 11. And in particular, he does 2 things. One is that the authors separate what they call scoring from grading. And what they mean by that is that grading is what you do at the very end when you put letter grades on the, you know, give letter grades out. So everything else is what he calls scoring. So he talks about scoring exams, etc. So just to get that terminology straight. And then there's some interesting things in this chapter, and I'm curious if anyone wants to talk about them. I have, there's some things that are fairly obvious. You know, he talks about exams being stressful and things like that. And then he goes through a lot of interesting points, or they go through a lot of interesting points. And where it gets really interesting is here, where I like the where is it, that, that you can have, here's a way of grading, of coming up with questions. And one of them that is very, very powerful is to ask students to come up with their own question, right? And that's very interesting because it's exactly what you just did for your homework this week. But imagine now that becomes the assignment for a student. Make up and solve a problem related to the lecture. Okay, that is very interesting because nobody can cheat on that, right? There's no chance of two people coming up with the same one by accident, and it's really going to push students in an interesting way to really think about the material and to make up and solve a problem. And I'm curious how you guys feel about that, because he talks about that sort of in passing here on page 218, but it's a very that really gets